Well, hello there, and welcome to the Trending Now podcast, episode 8 for a Friday, April the 7th, 2023. Louie Butko here with you to recap the week that was on Trending Now, which you can catch every Monday to Friday on social media, on CHCH and at CHCH.com. Lots to get to, as always. A busy week around the world, including Trump going to jail, the Canadians heading to the moon, and Galen Weston gets a raise because the rich get richer, and we'll get into all that and more. But first, let's kick it off with the Trending Now producer, and it's not Laura Sebben, making his second appearance on the show. Matt Ingram has been sitting in the big chair this week, and Matt, how's it going? You've survived. You've made it to Friday, so you've survived.
Yeah. Sebs is coming back next week. I'm doing one more on Monday, but you'll have her for next week at least.
Okay, all right. I will appreciate. I will look forward to her. She's going to come back. I don't think Sebs tans very well. Like, that's just my guess, but she'll come back with the tan. She was at the beach. I think.
Yeah, she'll come back with a great attitude, and we'll beat it out of her in a couple of days. Get back in the news cycle.
My vacation is scheduled for this month. And I use the word scheduled in there with air quotes. I'm going to Victoria, but it's going to be like the first time I've been on a plane that's non-chartered since the pandemic, which sounds really, like the non-chartered part sounds really fancy, but it's not. I want to talk to you about one of the big stories this week was Norway joining NATO.
Finland,
joining NATO.
It's close. They're all Scandinavian countries.
But this is a big deal. This is a big deal.
It's a huge deal. I mean, so they're the 31st member. Now, really, the reason this is such a big deal is they have about a 1,300-kilometer border with Russia. So by Finland joining the alliance, NATO now has a 1,300-kilometer border with Russia. And that is very significant given the ongoing war in Ukraine, which has become basically Russia versus the West. So with Finland, it adds to the alliance, which is a significant thing for all NATO member states. It is our collective defense agreement that has kept security in the world since the end of the Second World War. And on a bigger scale, it also is going to be, kind of a precursor to another country joining, Sweden. Mm-hmm. And they're in the final stages of talks to hopefully have Sweden also join the alliance in the future.
Sweden's bid being held up right now by Turkey, who's saying that Sweden's not doing enough to crack down on people that they consider terrorists. You mentioned Russia. They say that this will increase the risk of conflict with NATO, a bordering country. I mean, is this worst case scenario for Putin having this happen? Wasn't a part of going into Ukraine to prevent them from joining NATO?
You're right. Like it's. Sorry. I guess I should have turned my phone off.
Come on.
It's all right. I'm an important guy. I got a lot of messages coming in all the time. Like the entire intention of this war, according to Putin, was to counter the West, essentially. They were saying that, there was a threat from Ukraine. And now what they've done through this war is actually create a situation where NATO is more united than it's ever been. Now it's growing. And now they literally have NATO on their doorstep along the Finnish border.
Where do we go from here?
It's a great question. I mean, I wish I knew that. Nobody really knows that, right? But as far as the West is concerned, the official line is we're going to keep backing Ukraine until Ukraine wins this war. The interesting thing is what's going on behind the scenes in Russia, because Putin needs a victory out of this thing. And Finland joining, that's not a victory. They're bogged down in warfare in eastern Ukraine. We're coming into the summer months, which historically wars intensify just for weather reasons at that point. They've talked a lot about a new offensive against the Ukrainians. Whether that's coming or not, again, I don't have a crystal ball.
A little bit of a lighter note, your other story you're working on today.
Oh, man.
What are you working on?
Oh, buddy, I got lucky today. I'm getting paid to write about Star Wars. I mean, come on. How could you do that?
What's going on in the world of Star Wars?
Okay, cross the pond, head over to London, where Star Wars Celebration. So they do these things called Star Wars Celebration. Sorry, I don't know who's texting me.
You're very busy.
You know what?
Hey.
I think it's Kelly Botelho. She's a very demanding
that makes sense.
host.
Yeah.
Okay.
I buy that.
Get back to you in a while. Okay.
All right. Come on,
so
Kelly.
Star Wars Celebration is basically, it's a 4-day festival of all things Star Wars. But what's really kind of pretty cool out of this is not only are they talking about 3 new Star Wars television shows that are going to come out on Disney+. One, Ahsoka, we got a trailer for. The other 2, we didn't publicly get trailers, but they played the trailers exclusively for the people who were there. So they got a little taste. That's Skeleton Crew and The Acolyte. Those are both also in the works. Okay. But the real cool thing was Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey in the last couple Star Wars movies. She's coming back. She's going to be in a new Star Wars movie that's going to be set 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. And that was the big reveal. The crowd got real worked up. They live streamed the whole thing. So even though I'm here in Hamilton, I got to feel like I was there watching it. And it was a pretty cool moment. You know, she came out. I don't know what the fandom writ large thinks of this move, but whoever was in that building was pretty excited.
I was about to say, because I know there were a lot of criticisms with the way the Skywalker saga ended. Do you think this is making up for it? Do you think there was always a plan, or did you think they really wanted to end it? And is this too much? I mean, are we oversaturating? We've seen it in Marvel movies. The box office hasn't been doing, they still get the money that they need, but nothing's really reached that Avengers Endgame level box office. Are we oversaturating the market with these Star Wars stories?
Well, I personally don't think so. I think that there is such an appetite for Star Wars. I mean, You've seen it with the Mandalorian franchise. You've seen it with Andor. People love this stuff. I mean, I can't swear on this show, right?
I don't think so. If you do, I'd have to bleep it out, and that'd work for me.
I would use some swear words to emphasize how, well, not even me personally, but just it seems the fandom is behind this. I have seen a few people, a bit critical online about this, but there's always going to be people taking shots from the sidelines.
You're a nerd.
A total nerd.
Actually,
total nerd.
I didn't know that.
Actual nerd.
I would not have thought.
Star Trek nerd,
with the baseball jersey? Yeah, okay, so you were talking about Picard. You were going off about that.
Yeah, like this
You and Don and Justin, I mean, you guys are always talking about this show that
we're having a week. So for anyone who doesn't know, last night, Star Trek Picard, and this is going to be on Trending Now, so you'll be able to see a little bit of this. The entire cast of Star Trek The Next Generation was in one scene together again for the first time in 20 years, since the end of the last Star Trek Next Generation movie, Nemesis, in 2002. Huge deal for nerds like me. Huge deal. To give you an example, I worked late, this producer shift. It's not for the faint of heart. I get home, I watch this thing. It's not over until, it's 11:30. I put out a little tweet just about, hey man, what a great job to the show's showrunner. I wake up this morning, I got like 700 likes on it. It got retweeted, a million times. People are passionate about this television show. So
something about you and viral tweets.
Yeah, I know. It's
this year has been your year for viral tweets.
Well, we are going to have Dino on Trending Now next week giving. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my
He's
God!
not going to be there.
Oh my God! I almost said, by the way,
no.
I'm being told that the Star Trek Next Generation cast all appeared as a guest cast on an episode of Family Guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes, there was an episode where they brought them all back.
That doesn't count.
They brought back Patrick Stewart, LeVar Burton, Gates McFadden, Michael Dorn, Will Wheaton, Denise Crosby. All those people were on an episode of Family Guy.
I will have to look that up.
Which counts as a reunion, I guess.
Really?
Yeah.
You see, in my book, that doesn't count because they were drawn.
It
like, how do we know they were all in the same room voicing it at the same time?
I don't know.
What if they were on different
guest starred
continents?
themselves? It's right there. Okay, so is Patrick Stewart in the Picard series?
He's the star.
Okay, so it's based on
him.
Like later, this is okay.
Yeah. This takes place after the Next
Would I have to
Generation.
watch the first Star Trek to understand what's happening?
No, it's a very well told show.
Okay.
So if you're just a science fiction fan and wanted to watch it, you could totally watch it. You're not going to get the emotional reaction if you're not a Next Generation
intricacies
fan.
of the show.
You're not going to be tearing up or anything.
All right, there's enough. There's a tear. It's that emotional.
Oh man,
this is
just there. It goes last night. The birth of my children,
wow.
And then I don't know, a third thing that's awesome. A third thing
that's awesome. All right, well, you're awesome, man, and I appreciate you making the time today. I know you're a busy man. Get back to that phone that's been dinging this whole interview.
Thanks,
basically.
Louie. Yeah, I appreciate it. You have a good day.
Thanks, buddy. That is Matt Ingram. He's been the producer on Trending Now this week, filling in for the vacationing Laura Sebben. Still ahead, we'll be joined by Manesa Dhanabalan. We'll be joined by host Kelly Botelho as well. But let's get back to some of the other headlines that were making news this week, including, we told you about this last week, Donald Trump was set to be indicted on Tuesday, and lo and behold, it happened as the former president of the United States pleaded not guilty on Tuesday to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records after an investigation into hush money paid to a porn star, Stormy Daniels. That is not a sentence you would think that you'd be saying involving a former president, but he pled not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records after an investigation into hush money paid to a porn star.
Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records.
Gourmet coffee. If you don't think it's the best, we'll give you your money back.
Intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are.
That is the news in 2023. Well, prior to the arraignment, Trump said nothing as he walked past police and through a hallway in the courthouse before entering the courtroom for the proceeding before a judge. Trump became the first sitting or former U.S. president to face criminal charges and was indicted by a Manhattan grand jury last week, again, stemming from a 2016 hush money payment to Daniels. And we're still waiting on the specifics of the case. That'll be unveiled during the trial, which is set to begin in December. But Trump traveled from Florida. There were cameras on him literally 24/7, it felt like. There were live shots of him getting on the plane in Florida. There were live shots of his plane taking off. There was shots of his plane landing at LaGuardia. I mean, it was a little excessive. But then again, it was something that was historic. Never before had a former president of the United States been indicted, been arrested. That's what Trump was. When you plead not guilty, you have to plead not guilty to crimes, which is what Trump is accused of. There's only photos of Trump inside the courthouse, no video. Media outlets had requested to broadcast the historic proceedings. Trump's lawyer said, no, we don't want that. And the judge ruled that only still photos would be allowed before the hearing began. Meanwhile, outside the Manhattan courthouse, protesters both for and against Trump were making their voices heard.
We are in a dangerous territory because once the floodgates are open, we're going to have other prosecutors who will start targeting elected officials that they don't like.
President Trump, we love you. We support you. Thank you for everything you're doing for us.
Donald Trump is a joke, right? He's a very dangerous joke. He's been making fun of everything. He's making a travesty of everything. Just everything is like, well, how do I get attention to myself? He loves the circus. But today's a very serious day in our country.
And Trump's lawyer says this isn't the end. And as with anything with Donald Trump, the man who has been in the headlines for the last 50 years, obviously, this isn't the end. Also going on this week,
the Artemis II crew represents thousands of people working tirelessly to bring us to the stars. This is their crew. This is our crew. This is humanity's crew. May I introduce them to you all? He is a Master of Science in Physics, an F-18 pilot, and a Canadian astronaut. Your mission specialist, Jeremy Hansen.
A Canadian is heading to the moon. Yeah, 47-year-old Jeremy Hansen will be a mission specialist on a mission to orbit the moon to test the spacecraft and systems that will be used for humanity's eventual return to the lunar surface in 2025. Hansen was chosen from the Canadian Space Agency's pool of active astronauts. He'll be joined by American astronauts, mission specialist Christina Koch, pilot Victor Glover, and Commander Reed Wiseman on NASA's Orion spacecraft. Meanwhile, for Christina Koch, she'll become the first woman to orbit the moon.
It will be a 4-day journey going 250,000 miles, continuing to test out every bit of Orion, going around the far side of the moon, heading home, going through the Earth's atmosphere at over 25,000 miles per hour and splashing down in the Pacific.
The entire mission will take about 10 days, taking the crew more than 10,000 kilometers beyond the far side of the moon, where they will add their names to the list of only 24 people who have ever seen the Earth from so far away. And until now, until Canadian Jeremy Hansen, they were all American.
This view that the Apollo 8 astronauts shared with the world will be seen by a Canadian for the first time. That makes me proud and excited for a new era of space exploration.
The last time anyone had such a view was back in the Apollo 17 mission. That was the last of the Apollo missions, and that was in December 1972.
Congratulations on Artemis 2. It is such a big deal.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to call.
Hey, Artemis Team 2, how you all doing? Look, I want to thank you for your incredible service, the mission you're about to go on.
Hansen got calls from the Prime Minister and the U.S. President. Meanwhile, NASA plans to eventually build a lunar outpost called Gateway that will include Canadarm3, which is part of the long-term plan for the first manned flights to Mars. Also, going on this week, this is a story we've been following for a while now. We've talked a lot about grocery inflation. We talked a lot about Galen Weston being before the Parliament. Well, Galen Weston got paid. Yeah, Galen Weston got a raise. He took an $11.7 million in total compensation last year. Think about that when you're buying your Easter groceries this weekend. That the guy who owns the grocery store you're shopping for took home $11.7 million. It's a stark contrast to the struggle that many Canadians are facing to put food on the table. You know who Galen Weston is. You've seen him on commercials. He wants you to know who he is. He stars in his own commercials himself. He could get actors or, produce other commercials or hire writers to write better commercials. But no, he decides that he wants to be on camera. And that comes with a cost, as he is, some people have called him the most hated executive in Canada. Yeah. It's a big raise for him. It's over $1.2 million. Meanwhile, President's Choice or the Weston Loblaw companies said this is not a unique pat on the back nor a reflection of a moment in time. Loblaw's compensation review for senior executives is a standard and routine process. Meanwhile, groceries prices rose more than 9.8% last year and 10.6% year over year in February. That's more than double Canada's inflation rate. Meanwhile, Jagmeet Singh has gone after. I mentioned this. They've been before Parliament. Weston has pushed back, saying that food profit margins are small and the money is being reinvested in stores that serve Canadians. Which I was at the grocery store yesterday, as one is during the week. I've noticed that security has gotten tighter. So maybe those are the reinvestments that we're seeing. Because it seems like security is getting tighter. You have to go through this little gate that you can't go back out of without sending an emergency exit. And there's like railings all the way along right to the end. So that's where these profits are going, apparently reinvested into stores that serve Canadians. Meanwhile, Metro's CEO, Eric LaFlèche's pay jumped 7% to about $5.5 million. And Empire Companies, which own Sobeys and Farm Boy, CEO Michael Medline saw his income rise 15% to almost $9 million a year. And continuing our look around the week, let's get to today, where Republican-controlled Tennessee House voted to expel 2 black Democrats for gun control protests. And to discuss this further and more, very pleased to be joined by the hosts this week, Kelly Botelho, of course, filling in for Nicole Martin. Kelly, I mean, this story, it's pretty interesting. I mean, this is there's a lot going on in this one. Yeah.
I mean, the optics are terrible of it.
Yeah.
And these 2 representatives who were expelled, Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, they were accompanied by their Democratic colleague, Representative Gloria Johnson, yes, and she didn't get expelled. I mean, it was close.
Yeah.
But she didn't, and she was asked by CNN, Why do you think that happened? Why do you think you were spared? And she flat out said, because I'm a 60-something white woman. So, I mean, the optics are horrible.
So these three, the Tennessee Three, as they're being called in the media, they were protesting alongside a lot of youth protesters, gun violence. This is all happening with the background of 6 people being killed in a Christian school in Nashville, in Tennessee, and they were protesting. And this is only like the 3rd time that people have been expelled from the Tennessee House.
I think since the 1860s, it's been like 2 people, and this was 2 people on the same day. So it's quite significant, and there will be like a process now that they'll have to go through, and they might be able to get reelected, but I think that this probably has the opposite effect of what the Republicans in the House wanted it to have. It's drawing more attention to the gun law issues. It's making people more upset, and certainly I don't think they expected to have this kind of backlash and draw attention away from their cause and to the representatives' cause.
To your point, President Joe Biden, U.S. President Joe Biden, blasted the Republicans' priorities. He took to Twitter saying 3 kids, 3 officials gunned down in yet another mass shooting. And what are the GOP officials focused on? Punishing lawmakers who joined thousands of peaceful protesters calling for action. It's shocking, undemocratic, and without precedent.
A lot of young people, too, at these protests right now. I don't think the world is ready for Gen Z.
Yeah,
because
I don't think they are.
We're not ready for Gen Z.
We're really not.
Gen Z are really, they're activists. They stand up for what they believe, and I think it might be a shock in the coming few years as to the force that Gen Z is.
Whoever can get people who are, like, if you are anybody, and that's what Obama did in 2008. He captured this wave of youth and excitement. I don't know if we'll ever see another Obama, just because he was so well-spoken. He was so motivating around that time. And I think I was 16 or something, couldn't vote, didn't really have a say in what was going on in the U.S. But to see him, he was definitely someone I was captivated by. I feel like whoever comes now who can find out a way to get U.S., Canada, doesn't matter. If you can find someone who can motivate 18 to 30-year-olds to hit the polls, because I've had those conversations with my friends who don't care what goes on. Speaking of politics, speaking of caring what's going on, Donald Trump, man.
Donald Trump, man.
I've already spent some time on this podcast talking about it, but I've just read this today. Donald Trump Jr. took to Twitter to post a dramatic campaign video featuring footage of his widely watched arrest this week. It's a 56-second ad. Trump is voiced in the clip saying, "The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it." He claims that he's raised $10 million since news of the indictment broke.
That doesn't surprise me.
And he's launched a T-shirt with a fake mugshot, because we didn't get the mugshot. We were all waiting around on Tuesday
on
whether
real?
This was happened. I'm going to show you this. This was the day of the arrest. He launched a fake mugshot merch.
He looks good in the mugshot. Of course he does.
Of course he does. You know how much work. So it's free with a $47 contribution to the campaign. It can also be purchased for $36. The thing about this that a lot of people were talking about is this might fall out of people's purview. I mean, he was arrested, he was indicted, but the trial's not till December.
Oh, and that's even if, like these things get pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. This could be years and years and years until we see the end of something like this.
By the way, 48% of self-described Republicans say they want Trump to be their presidential nominee. That's up from 44%. And that's what I kind of get. I mean, you're somebody who watches the news all day, every day. That's what we do here. We're in the news business. Was it overkill? Was the shots of Trump's plane? I mean, was the media doing Trump's bidding for him? Because there's a lot of people who look at this in 2022 and go back to 2015 and be like, you can't just put him on TV because he says he's going to say something, because you're just giving him exactly what he wants.
Absolutely. But this was something that has never happened before in history. So I don't think it was overkill because the magnitude of the situation, this is huge. This is literally never happened before. So yeah, we had every shot of him walking to the courthouse, his plane taking off, his plane landing, every little detail because people want to see it. This is major news. So
you've had so many chances, Republicans, to walk away from him. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah, he's still doing really well, I guess, in the polls, and I do think that this might add fuel to the fire of some of his supporters because he a lot of times he tells them that he's a victim and he's a victim of attack.
How is a billionaire paying off a porn star? How is that a victim? I mean, in what world would we look at this and think, oh, that poor guy, they're treating him so unfairly?
Yeah, but some people at these, some supporters that I've seen rallying around him during this time, they're like, oh, so what? He did that. Who cares? And all this kind of stuff. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but
He's mission accomplished for Trump. He's dominating the news cycle as he always seems to do. Big plans for the Easter weekend?
Just family stuff. Lots of
chocolate.
Chocolate, yes.
There was chocolate in the canteen.
I've already had some. Okay, yeah. I've already dug into that. So.
Yeah, and then it doesn't help that Taz Boga, our 6 p.m. anchor's got a giant bag of Cadbury.
I've had some of those too. She was very kind to share.
Oh, very, very kind. That's the first time. Never mind. I'm not going to go there. Kelly Botelho, thank you so much for doing this. Happy Easter. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. You too.
And my thanks to Kelly Botelho for joining me. And speaking of Easter and Easter plans and the Easter weekend and what it all means, Manesa Dhanabalan's been on that story today. Manesa, what is Easter?
Oh, well, Easter is the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Right? It follows Good Friday. But a lot of what I learned today when I was doing some research is that a lot of the, some of the traditions that people do on Easter, like egg rolls and egg hunts and that kind of stuff, the Easter Bunny, weren't necessarily, well, you know what? The Easter Bunny is a symbol of fertility.
Okay.
Apparently. Bunnies were...
It's like a spring thing.
Yeah.
Blanking like bunnies.
Yes.
Fertility. Right?
You know how long it took me to register what you were saying? I was like, what?
I can't swear on this show, but yeah, okay, all right. Yeah.
So some of the traditions kind of come from pagan traditions. Right? Remember Valentine's Day and what was the other thing that we talked about was the same thing?
April Fool's is also a pagan holiday because the pagans' calendar used to reset in April, which is a fact I actually learned from The Simpsons, that April Fool's Day is a pagan tradition, like you said, so many other things. Rebirth, resurrection, I mean, that all ties together with Easter. The egg roll hunt, what's that? Like you were saying?
Okay, so apparently in, I think it was 76. I just saw the date.
All right. We'll watch your pack.
Even on even at the White House on Capitol Hill, they would do this egg roll for kids, right? Yeah. So the egg roll, egg hunts, do you remember when you were a kid and you had egg hunts around your house? Where was the best spot to find the egg in your house?
It was always just a race because I'm one of 6 kids. So it was basically you got up, you had to wait until everyone was up. So the same thing with Christmas. You had to wait till everyone was up. And then it was just a mad dash to find as many as you can. And then you always found one. We did chocolate eggs and we colored eggs too. Obviously, we've been doing that for... Shout out to my grandma because probably going to end up doing that this weekend. But it'd be a race, but then a week later you'd find another one, and then a month later you'd find another one. And your dad, my dad wouldn't know where to do it. But it was always been. Easter's a big thing. It's always been a big thing in my family. It's always been, go to church with grandma, have dinner. I'm working all weekend, so I won't be able to do it this year. What about you? What do you do? Easter things? Do you do chocolates? What do you do?
So I love chocolate on a regular, so I always go buy chocolates, and I like mini eggs. So
there you go.
It's just something that I'm always gonna do. Yeah. But you know what? You know what's funny? Even so the Easter egg hunts, I asked my mom to do it because I saw everybody else doing it and I wanted chocolate too. It's just fun,
obviously.
Right? So I have 2 sisters. So even though I would find almost me or my oldest sister would find almost most of the eggs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at the end of the day because my mom's going to take all our eggs and she's going to just
distribute them.
So it didn't even matter. So my other sister wouldn't even bother half the time.
Smart. So your other sister's the smart one of the 3.
she just sat there. Like,
she knew that she was going to get the same amount of chocolate regardless. Did she give you all your chocolate at once? Because I'm really bad. Even now, like my mom still makes an Easter basket for me. With like little, like not like
That's so
no
cute.
gifts or like it's just like it's literally just candy. But like I'm really bad that if I have chocolate in the house, I'm gonna eat it. Like, are you someone who has control? And
absolutely not.
Yeah,
No
okay.
control when it comes to chocolate.
That's why I haven't been back. Kelly and I were just talking. This is why I haven't been to the canteen all day, because there's literally like bags of chocolate. You were talking to Alex earlier, and like you were sitting there staring at the chocolate.
Yeah,
like,
I was literally
yeah.
like, I wanted to kind of put my hand over there, but I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just wait. Like, Alex actually hides the stash of chocolate.
Oh, nice. Smart. That is smart.
So when I need it, like, he'll give me like one at a time.
It's like your child.
Because I'll finish it.
Yeah,
Because if it's in my house, it'll get done. Yeah, it's not going to last.
You had a couple other cool stories. WrestleMania this week.
Yeah,
you
WrestleMania.
You had some baseball beef going on. Verdugo and Alec Manoa. Like, you were all over the sports this week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sports, wrestling, all of that.
I like how you included that sports is different from wrestling, because sports are real and wrestling is not. Wrestling's really weird. There's a big deal with UFC.
Yes. So they're the parent company is going to be so they're going to be merging it together. So a lot of people are like, how is this going to look? Like, more is like what people seem to be more concerned about is like how the drama is going to play out, because Vince McMahon is a little like
with his little mustache.
Oh
you
my
love
gosh!
that.
Don't even
you had to
get
stare
me
at
started.
that mustache all day on Monday.
I thought that he got his lips done.
Oh, you got his lips done.
Because
it was
when
like
I glanced at it, I
like,
thought like it looked like it was like swelled and there was a shadow. So
Oh my gosh, that's what you thought it was. That's amazing.
I honestly thought that.
All right, Manesa Dhanabalan, thank you for doing this. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you so much.
All right, my thanks to Manesa Dhanabalan, my thanks to Kelly Botelho, my thanks to Matt Ingram, and my thanks to you as well for following us, for checking us out. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. This has been the Trending Now podcast from all of us here at CHCH. Hoping you have a great Easter and a great weekend, and we'll be back next week.